thanks to very good directions from Brent, it didn't take too long to find this very big male lion, and some of you may well know a lot more than I do about this animal, so I would appreciate any bits of information you may have on him. Like I said, I've been very out of the loop, but what I can assure you is that this guy is not going anywhere soon. As you can see, he's fast asleep, and like I said a bit earlier, it is quite warm. He appears to have quite a full belly. I'm told that he may have snuck in on a meal of a zebra that a pride of lions made not too far from here this morning. So he's well fed in the shade, panting heavily and quite content for now. Oh, well, there's a very, very good characteristic, that scar over his eye, so I'm sure now some of you who tune into Safari Live daily will know exactly who he is. And it's one of the things that we really miss about the Sabi Sands and Safari Live in general, is that you really do manage to keep such close tabs on these animals and get a great insight into their lives, what happens, not just looking at them as a species, but more of an individual. Oh, well, thanks very much to Annie, who's already helped out with the name of this lion, which is Mfumo, and I'm sure he's part of a greater coalition, and he's probably just doing the rounds on his own now. But thanks very much, Annie, for helping me out with that. Now that he's laid down on his side, you can see that full belly I was talking about earlier. And the good news for him is that he can go for a good few days without feeding after a meal like this. And during this time he may be able to focus his efforts more on patrolling what I'm sure is a large territory. He seems to be in his prime, making sure that there's no imposters, and also making sure that there's no ladies that may be looking for a male. Wouldn't that be a treat? Great question through from Riker, from one of the schools in Virginia. Great to have you with us. And I always tell the school kids to be very grateful of their teachers allowing them to get involved in this. So don't forget that. Riker, you would like to know if lions ever go into any kind of form of hibernation. And it's a good question. Lions don't actually do that. They actually probably prefer the colder months and become more active in the winter, especially during the daylight hours. So the lion's not a good example of an animal that hibernates. And actually, most animals in South Africa, where it's quite hot where we are now, will not have the need to hibernate because we don't get very much snow here. But we get the opposite of that, right? And it's called estivation, which means you become less active, like animals do when they hibernate, only when it becomes very hot and dry. So animals like crocodiles will do that. When the rivers dry up, they'll go into the caves and basically sleep until the rains come again. So there are animals that estivate in Africa when it gets very hot and dry and when there's not much food around. But the lions, thankfully, they can handle the weather throughout the year. Through summer and winter, they'll be on the move. Hello Hayden, also from another school. Great to have you with us. And you are entirely correct. Lions do like to sleep. They love to sleep, actually, and they sleep for many, many hours of every day. Sometimes 20 hours will be spent sleeping. So when they move with purpose, and they can often move fairly large distances quite quickly. But when it's time to sleep, they really do enjoy it. And in the summer months, and even now going into winter when it's still quite warm, they'll be mainly active at night for those kind of 4 or 5 hours of movements. Which makes our job a little bit tricky because, of course, we would prefer to see them on the move, in action, doing their business. But the good news is if we're patient this afternoon and we come back a little bit later and spend some time with him, hopefully we'll get to see him waking up. Maybe he'll roar for us if we're very lucky. If there's one thing that I wish I could show everyone on safari, it would be a lion roaring. It's one of the most impressive things to experience. And later we could get lucky. So even if your class finishes, when you go home, tune in and maybe you'll get to see the king of the beasts roaring. As I said earlier, it was Brent's wonderful directions to this lion that got us here, and you can thank him because you're about to jump onto his vehicle. So we've just got back into position with this big male lion, Mfumo, that we touched base with a little bit earlier. He's just rolled over, so we're going to reposition slightly to get you a better view of his face. And it's a good sign that he has moved ever so slightly, because he may be thinking of waking up. He may want to go and quench his thirst. The closest large waterhole to here is probably Buffelshoek Hook waterhole. But to be honest, there's so many puddles lying around at the moment that he probably won't need to go that far to quench his thirst. As you can see though, for now, he's still in a bit of a doze. But that could change at any stage from now on. I don't think we should take any chances and not be here when he gets up. So Dave and I are happy to know that the second half of this afternoon's adventure could well be spent with him. And what I'm really hoping for is that we get some luck with the new infrared camera and lighting. That is an absolute game changer for the Safari Live experience and safari in general, to be able to follow animals after dark with very little interference to their ongoings is the benefits of these infrared cameras, and they work incredibly well. I'm astounded by the footage that's been captured so far. So that's a possible prospect for later. In the meantime though, I'm going to get my James's beer-bellied parrot, which is a work of art. I'd be interested to see how Brent's bird turned out, but the good news is Brent's found a real bird, so back to him. So that this big old boy gets his act together and starts making plans for the evening. Not looking very promising at the moment. Since you've been gone, he hasn't so much as twitched. But like I said earlier, that could change at any moment, and he could get up and start pacing through his territory, who knows in search of what. Probably not a meal initially, although he will take one happily if he stumbles upon one. I'm hoping for the jackpot, and that is for him to vocalize, to try and communicate with the other coalition members, or the other ladies that fall into his coalition's territory. And that would be absolutely incredible. Haven't heard lions roaring from a close proximity for quite some time. We do get lion in and around our camp, but they don't tend to be as vocal as the lion down here. So that would be an absolute treat for us. Look at that face. I mean, he's not that old, yet his face is already bearing many scars and scratches. And even though we are so lucky to follow them closely and get a good idea of what they get up to, there's a lot that goes on when we're not around. And I guess that's when he's received a lot of his scars. The males do fight with other males, but it's something that's very fortunate to behold. Most of the animals will very seldom come to physical blows with one another. It'll more often be vocalization, posturing. Just like us as humans, there's a lot of shouting and puffing up of one's chest before one comes to blows with another human, and it's the same with animals. They tend to try and avoid violence and physical confrontation by settling their disputes vocally or visually. I know when these guys came into this territory about 2 years ago, They did certainly wreak a lot of havoc, but sadly, as I said, none of us were in the right place at the right time to catch any of the confrontations. There were a few glimpses of either these guys running away or the previous coalition, the Matimba males, 2 old males. And who knows who will be the next coalition to challenge Mfumo and the rest of the Birmingham coalition. I think tonight, though, there's not too much to worry about, and he seems largely at peace. Have there been any other males moving around, Dave, or?
Negative.
Not? Okay. Like I said earlier, we've sadly been so busy with our new job managing a camp up in Kenya that we haven't been able to follow the Safari Live story here on Djuma as closely as we would have liked to. So I'm relying on you guys to give us any interesting updates from since I've been away. And Joshua would like to know a little bit more about the camp where we are working up in Kenya, whereabouts it is, what it's like. Josh, it's in a semi-arid area of Kenya called Samburu, which is in the central parts of Kenya. It's termed northern Kenya, but it doesn't really make sense. It's just the most northern part of kind of anything that's happening in Kenya. Further north of Samburu becomes very dry, desolate, very harsh conditions for life. So there's very little developments or ongoings in the kind of northern half of Kenya that borders up to Sudan and Ethiopia and Somalia. But it's a beautiful, beautiful area. There's a national reserve quite close to where our camp is. It's completely unfenced, so hugely different to a lot of parts of South Africa in that there is no fences keeping the wild animals and the humans apart from one another. So you get this really interesting coexistence between the local people who are pastoralist herders. They herd mainly goats and a few cows, and that is how they survive. And they survive in amongst the lions and the leopard and the hyena. Obviously there's hardships that come with humans living amongst wild animals, and that wild animals like to eat livestock. It's a very easy source of food, and naturally that causes the local people to become angry or aggressive to the wild animals that are eating their livelihood. So it's a very interesting dynamic, and there's some really great initiatives and projects going on there trying to work out how best for humans and wildlife to coexist. But we certainly are loving the area. There's a lot of large differences to here, Joshua. The vegetation, the animals, the birds, the people, the language, the culture. So it's been a wonderful change of scenery for us, but it must be said, it is incredibly, incredibly good to be back here in the Sabi Sands. It's a very unique wilderness. You get to see animals at such close proximity as we are now, completely unaffected by us being here. And that for me is the ultimate goal, for us to be able to view these wild animals, get to enjoy their brilliance without interfering on their daily behavior. And as you can see, that's exactly what's happening here. So we're all very lucky to be a part of this experience, and specifically in this reserve, which is a very fantastic conservation area, not just in South Africa, but in Africa as a whole. Oh, look at that eye. So, well, both eyes, but the one with the scar over it seems to catch one's attention. And just checking in on things. There's another vehicle enjoying the sighting with us, and they're just moving off. So it was just opening an eye just to give them a wink goodbye. Hello to Ollie. You may be wondering if he's opening his eyes in threat of any predators approaching. And although lions are the top of the food chain here, Ollie, there are other risks to them, mainly from other lions. So I don't know if you can call them other predators for lions, but it's more of an enemy, because they are not predating on one another for food, but for competition. and all of the predators will compete with one another. The lion are lucky enough the top of that food chain, as I said, so they will kill leopard, cheetah, hyena, any predators that they can get their claws sunk into, just to eliminate competition. And the same applies for their own species. They will eliminate other lions that they do not want in that area, because then life becomes easier for them. There's more food and more ladies. Other threats they may face, though, other than things that may want to kill them for competition purposes, like lion, nice big stretch, that's what we like to see, boy. A few more of those and a few more big yawns, and hopefully you'll be ready for an evening of adventure where we can tag along with the infrared light. But as I was saying, other things, Ollie, that could possibly hurt a lion are buffalo when they are hunting them. Of course, the buffalo are considerably larger than lions, 4 or 5 times the size at least. And with those powerful horns and hooves, they can inflict quite a lot of damage to lion when they're being hunted. I guess zebra even can deliver a nasty kick, and giraffe are another big animal that could harm a lion. But they're just doing it to defend themselves, I guess. They're not really predating on the lion, so to speak. One area, or one thing that I did forget about, is hyena. I mean, hyena in large quantities can cause a lot of nuisance for lions. But here in the Sabi Sands, we've got quite small clans, so it's uncommon for hyena to try and overpower lion. But as I was saying earlier, in the Masai Mara, where you'll all be lucky enough to be going on safari shortly, you may well see a lot more lion and hyena interaction, where very large clans join forces and overwhelm prides of lion, chasing them from their kills, and sometimes even killing them. Now, despite the fact that it's cooling down quite considerably now that the sun's dipped below the horizon, he's still panting quite heavily. And that's probably due to the fact that he's not so much trying to cool down, but he's just got so much food in his stomach that it's pushing up against his diaphragm. So that's what's causing him to take very short breaths. Very interesting questions just come through from Bobby. And you would like to know if lions have any capabilities of erecting their manes or kind of puffing them up. And not really. The majority of their mane is kind of flaccid in that it cannot be erected when they want to. But I'm guessing a very short part, well, not guessing, there's a very short part of their kind of the spinal parts of their mane that will be erected. Not dissimilar to that of a domestic cat or a dog that's got very short hair, but when they get excited or aggressive, they may erect whatever short amounts of hair they do have, but that's usually along the spine. So I guess the answer to that is no. It just depends on which way the wind's blowing, I guess, could have effect on fluffing up a lion's mane. Or actually just the mere size of one individual lion's mane from another may give it an appearance that it's more puffy than another. And it's really interesting how lions' manes will actually differ greatly in size and in color, depending on their genetics in specific parts of Africa. And then you do get slightly different colored manes as you move through different parts of Africa. The Kalahari is very well known for black-maned lions. You get some areas where the lion's manes are a lot paler blonde color. It would certainly be very impressive, though, if they could puff their manes up. But sadly, they lack that ability. Some crested francolins letting off their evening call. Cape turtle doves. Kurr, kurr, kurr. a very, very peaceful evening here, and I must say I'm thoroughly enjoying the change of scenery. My office for the last year has been more regular compared to that of a Safari Live office out in one of these wonderful open landies. I've been spending a lot of time doing emails, working out Excel spreadsheets. So to be out here on an evening like this with the big mail line is a very, very welcome change for myself. And I'm sure all of you, regardless of what your jobs are or where you are in the world, are also enjoying the fine views and entertainment that's been unfolding here this afternoon. It's really wonderful that each and every day there's a bushwalk going out, because that really does open up a whole new world when it comes to safari. And it was just a year ago, for those of you who are new, that we would only usually have 2 feeds out on any regular safari, and now there's 3. So the more presenters driving around looking for action, the more action there'll be. And that's certainly happening at the moment, so I guess the new viewers can now appreciate that extra feed that the older viewers will know about. And many, many years ago, hard to believe that it was just a still JPEG image that was being uploaded every now and then to keep people up to date with what was going on the safari. Since you guys have been gone, Dave's been working on the infrared light, so he's got that all ready for action. And I cannot wait to see it in action. I am so excited. Let's just hope that this guy decides to get active before the action or before the show closes. Very, very happy to hear that a good friend of mine, David, is watching. Davi, wonderful to know that you got the message that I was going live today. And you'd like to know if we name any of the animals up in Kenya, just like kind of name and keep track of the animals here. And certainly, yes, in some parts of Kenya, especially the Masai Mara, the guys keep quite a close tab of the cheetah in that area, the leopard and the lion. So they do have names of the different prides, possibly of some of the different individuals. Some of the well-known male lions like Scar and Notch are very well known from the Masai Mara. That's the one area that I know people do name the animals and keep quite close tabs on them. In other parts of Kenya where we're working, that isn't so much the case, but it's something we're trying to kind of get our guides into. We've started working out some leopard ID kits for the leopards in our area, so we are planning on doing that, and we'll keep you posted on our progress. Because, as I said earlier, it is so interesting to be able to know these animals as individuals, not just as a lion or a leopard. Okay, well, it seems like, I was just going to say, it seems like a good time to send you across to Brent for an update. And as I said, that it looked like he was going to get up, but his most recent movements indicate that you're not going to miss out on too much while you're gone, so over to Brent. More signs of becoming active, and let's hope it's not too much longer before he decides to get up, and I'm guessing he's going to head in search of a puddle for a drink. And who knows where he will head from there. Let's just hope we can keep up with him wherever he decides to go. There are some thick bushes around us if he heads kind of more north and west, but if he heads north and east or south, we should be able to keep a good eye on him. It's always a bit of a lottery to kind of guess how long it will take for them to get up. He's already yawned 3 or 4 times, which is a very good sign. For a cat, before it gets up, they like to yawn. So who knows, maybe 1 or 2 more big yawns, and he'll be good to go. Hello, Brian in Philadelphia. You must have misheard me. I think you've said that I've said the leopards were bigger in Kenya than here in the Sabi Sands. Oh, nice big yawn. And in some areas they may well be. In the Aberdare National Park, which is a beautiful, beautiful national park in Kenya, there have been some very large leopard recorded, and even melanistic leopard, black leopard, in those areas, along with melanistic serval, which I've been lucky enough to see in that reserve myself. But where we are in Kenya, the leopards are quite small, actually. The females are very small. Oh, we're in luck. And just like the leopards, you also get different sized lion throughout Africa, depending on their genes and the area within which you find them. Lucky lady on the front seat there. You've got a great view of him as he strolls off. And as you can see, there are two other vehicles with us in the sighting. So we're going to try and work around them, and we'll all kind of take turns and try and leapfrog ahead of him as he moves, and that way keep a tab of exactly where he is. What I'm thinking of doing is possibly, let's just stay behind Taxon for now. It's always a bit of a lottery when following animals through thick bush like this, and with the, which route to take. And sometimes racing off wildly, although it may seem like the right thing to do, it may not be. So we're just going to take it slow. We of course really don't want to interfere in his movements, and by us crashing ahead and rushing around recklessly, that would definitely have an impact on any possible prey that may be ahead of him. Who knows, maybe there's a big buffalo waiting for him to try his luck on. But like I said, with a bit of patience and teamwork with the other vehicles in the sighting, we shouldn't have too much of a problem keeping up with him. And what I'm even thinking of doing, because I know he's heading into such a thick area, is maybe getting one last glimpse of him here and then looping ahead through a little riverbed, and then maybe getting another view of him. But for now, he's thankfully stopped to have a small toilet break. And isn't that a magical sight, with all the grass seeds, his beautiful big mane, lit up perfectly by the other vehicle for us. Absolutely awesome. I'm going to keep moving. Now, if I remember correctly, I think there may be a little way through this riverbed, but I'm a bit rusty, so I'm not going to take any chances, and I think I'm going to go around. Hello, Cheryl. You would like to know if the animals in the camp where we are working are as habituated as the animals here. To a degree, yes, they are, to the vehicles. They've become fairly used to the vehicles out there, just like they've become used to the vehicles over here. However, they're a little bit more cautious of people on foot, because they do come across herders on foot. They tend to be a little bit more shy of people on foot. But if you're in a vehicle, you can get really close, both to the lion, the leopard, the cheetah. But I think we are very, very fortunate in the Sabi Sands in that there are so many vehicles that follow these animals very closely, that allows them to become so habituated and relaxed with the vehicles. Okay, I think we're going to scoot through a little spot over here on the right. Squeeze tight, everybody. I'm just going to be a few seconds, and then I think I may have a good view of him coming towards us. If not, I'm going to send you back to Brent until we do get into a favorable position. No good. We're going to be a few minutes getting into a good spot, so we'll send you back to Brent, and I promise you we'll call you back as soon as we are in a better position. This is so awesome. We've got him again. He's in a much more open area, and we are viewing him entirely with infrared light. It's not completely dark yet, to be honest, but I'm still blown away by how awesome the technology is that's allowing us to view these animals after dark. And both other vehicles have also managed to catch up eventually. So all three of us are here, which, like I said, is very important. Without teamwork in a place like this, it would be a very lonely and boring safari with very little animals to see. It's only that all the guides work together, share their knowledge, share their sightings, share information, that allows it all to work out and everybody to get to see the great things that we do. Now I wonder where he's deciding to head to. Look at how wonderful that is, just a meter or so behind the vehicle. You can see some of the guests on that vehicle are a little bit concerned, peeking over their shoulder. Let's just stop here and watch as he decides where he's going to head next. Dave thinks he may have heard him vocalizing when we were driving to catch up, so maybe it was just the vehicle noise and the earpiece that stopped me from hearing that. And we could, if we are very, very lucky, get to hear him vocalize, and that would be an absolute treat. Shelley, I agree. I would love him to roar. And Shelley is urging Mr. Mfumo here to display his singing abilities. It's really interesting. He's really slowed down here, which for me is quite interesting. He got up, moved quite quickly to this area, and for no apparent reason to us, he has stopped. As you can see though, he's sniffing around quite carefully, and what he may even do, I'm guessing, is do the phlegm grimace. He may be smelling other lions, possibly some prey, but there's some kind of a smell that's caught his attention here. Let's watch closely. You can see him very intently sniffing the grass. What can you smell, mister? Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a very powerful sense of smell? But the only thing that I can confidently identify the smell of is KFC, and I'm probably good at about 100 meters off any one of their franchises, but anything else than that, I'm going to have to be right on top of it to smell it. But these wild animals certainly do have some senses that our little brains cannot even comprehend. You'll notice quite a few little moths and bugs flying around. And their numbers will subside as we go into the winter, and there would have been a lot more in the height of the summer. Oh, bless you. Nice sneeze then. I guess one of the catches with trying to sniff what's been moving through the grass is that you inhale some of the grass seeds into your nose, causing a very ticklish sensation, and then a sneeze to get rid of it. Oh, looks like he's coming back to investigate. Now, he came from more of a southerly direction this morning, so I'm told he came in from the south, which means this would have been the first time in a while that he has smelt this area. And I guess it'll just be one of those mysteries that we will never get to the bottom of, whether it's a pack of wild dogs that he can smell, another lion, a leopard. It certainly has stopped his initial plans, which were to head north. Ali, we've just got a wonderful theory from you, wondering whether or not a red dot laser, if shone in front of a lion, will trigger it to chase it. Now, stranger things have happened, and I know for a fact that domestic cats and dogs do like to chase a red dot laser. So there is a very small chance that lions could be the same. It's something that we wouldn't try though, not for all the money in the world, because as I've said earlier, one of our biggest goals out here is to actually not impact and interfere on their behavior. Even if it is something as innocent as playing a little game of chase the laser with a lion, it's not something that we would want to do, because where then do you draw the line? You know, you've got to have barriers or kind of limits with regards to viewing these animals and how close you get to them, or what you do to get them to move, and essentially less is more, and we don't want to get them to do anything unless it's their own kind of natural behavior. I'm going to see if we can't somehow get ahead of him so we can get him pacing towards us. But it's a little bit tricky because it's quite thick here. Hello, Dry. You would like to know if we have any hope in this lion popping out on the dam cam. And sadly, at the moment, he's probably about 1.5 kilometers as the crow flies to the north and west of the dam cam, and he is continuing in a northwesterly direction, so he's heading away from it. At the moment, he's kind of heading towards Sibambili, I'm guessing. So kind of north and west. He could pop out at Buffelshoek Dam, but he's heading a little bit more west than that at the moment. Okay, we've nearly got to a good spot where we can stop and wait for him to approach us. I'm just trying to drive slowly because even though you guys can see it quite light, I am looking in pitch darkness, operating without the headlights, which is more of a trial than a necessity. Oh, I think we're in luck. If he keeps coming here, there is a big puddle from which I'm hoping he will drink. But is he going to veer off into our direction? He's behind the bushes. He's kind of to the left of where you are now, Dave. He could pop out into the left-hand little gap there. Oh no, here he comes. I think we're in luck. I think he's going to come straight towards us and have a drink from this little puddle. So we've got very, very lucky here. And we are so close we may even hear the sound of the water lapping. Look at that. Absolutely wonderful. Now we have to be understanding for the game viewers who are shining their spotlights on him, because of course none of the guests can see anything. So we'll excuse them for that. And watch this big old boy quench his thirst. It would be interesting to know how many litres he takes on now. Maybe a litre or two. And that's what takes so long, because each little mouthful is certainly not putting too much moisture into his mouth. And I'm told you could just faintly pick him up. There's a bit of ambient noise with the other vehicles moving around. So I was possibly a little bit hopeful, and he's a little bit further away than I anticipated him to be. Let's try another time now. Now we can hear him. Now he's going for it. I'm glad I don't have to drink like a lion. It would be awfully frustrating trying to down a glass of water on a hot day when you can only do it one kind of lapful at a time. Absolutely awesome, guys. Well, our luck really has been with us this afternoon, and I've thoroughly enjoyed absolutely every minute of being out here with all of you. And the cherry on the top is that we're getting to see this big male lion having a drink. And as I mentioned earlier, quite fortunate for a lot of the animals at the moment. There's moisture around every corner, albeit in a little puddle like this. And that certainly won't be the case in 3 or 4... Listen. Come on. Do it again. About 5 or 6 times, preferably. Yes. How incredible is this? You don't get any better. Well, we couldn't see him roaring, but you could definitely hear him. And even though he was facing away, it was absolutely wonderful to hear. I think he's just getting warmed up, to be honest. And if we stay with him a bit longer, he could well try and chat with his other coalition members again. Okay, I'm going to have to turn on the lights now a little bit. I can't believe how lucky we are, guys. That is absolutely awesome. And I'm guessing what may happen is that the guides may now head back to camp. They've hit the jackpot with their guests in terms of what they've seen. And then we may be lucky enough to enjoy the sighting all alone. Only with the infrared. Have they got him there, Dave? Okay. What I shall do is get my little flashlight out and try and work out where he has gone. And while we try and work out where this big male lion has disappeared to, we're going to send you back to Brent. So thankfully, Mfumo has decided to take a path of less resistance, and he's now on Impala Plains Road, which is going to make following him a lot easier. It also becomes quite nice and open, at least for a short section here, where we should be able to get some good views of him. And I'm going to follow Taxon's route. There is a whole herd of impala running off away from him. Just up ahead of us, you may have got a glimpse of them. So they are fleeing the scene, as would I if I was an impala and there was a big male lion walking towards me. I think they heard him vocalize earlier, and that's possibly why they didn't actually alarm call. They just decided to run off. So he's in all likelihood going to scent mark here. Watch closely. There we go. Where they urinate against the bushes, leaving a trail of messages for other lion. I'm going to see if now we can't loop ahead of him as he paces along this road. Hopefully we can get into a little bit of an opening. Ooh. Hello, Tanith. You would like to know how often males lions mate, and they mate as often as they possibly can. Whenever they get lucky, they will take that opportunity. It all depends on how often the females or lioness come into season, and that all depends on kind of pride dynamics, how big the prides are, and how unfortunate or fortunate they are with regards to raising their cubs. If they raise cubs to adulthood, then it can take a long time for them to actually give birth to their next set of cubs, whereas if they are unfortunate and lose cubs, then they'll give birth or have to mate more regularly. So it fluctuates greatly on the area and on the individual male lion's luck. Even in Mfumo's case, even though there may be wanting females, it may be other members of his coalition that are more powerful than him that get to mate. So there's a lot of variables in that question, but the short answer is as often as they possibly get the opportunity to. So he's continuing north, and if he continues like this, he's going to kind of have two options. He could either veer west to Sibambili, or he could head more east towards Buffelshoek Dam. So we'll see what happens in the next few minutes. But for now, all I can assure you is that he is heading away from Djuma and away from the dam camp. So unlikely that we're going to get lucky enough to see him there. But we've got him here now, and let's see how long we can stay with him. Just walk. I'm thinking possibly, well, we'll just let the other vehicle go ahead quickly. Very important to maintain good relationships with everyone, and we've had a few great views of him, so I'd like the other vehicle. Oh, listen. He's roaring again. That is absolutely wonderful. And although we couldn't see him, at least we could hear him. For any of you who are watching for the first time, it's an incredible, incredible noise to hear in the African wilderness, that of a male lion roaring, and I hope you enjoyed it. A lot of you, if it is your first time, may be surprised at the audio that the lion has made. It may be different to what you were expecting. And you'll find that a lot as you continue to enjoy Safari Live. There's a lot of strange noises that the animals make. Leopards also make a very strange noise that I certainly wouldn't have expected them to make. And now I have to make that noise for you. It sounds like sawing through wood with a wood saw. So that is the sound of a leopard. You've just heard the lion, and you will get to hear the many other noises as you continue to follow the Safari Live adventure. So as you can see, the vehicle that kind of snuck ahead of us is now giving us a little chance to view him. And there are a few other vehicles wanting to come into the sighting, and they are going to be coming from the other way. So I'm thinking what we should probably do is just stop here. We are not going to be able to get in front of him again. The bush is simply too thick ahead of us. And what we'll do is we'll let him continue off to the other vehicles of guests that are, I'm sure, very excited to see them. They may not even know what they're in for. The guides often keep it a surprise. So enjoy these last glimpses of Mfumo as he heads north. And I'm certainly very, very grateful for the fact that he did get up, roar, drink, and roar again, which has made for an incredible evening. Well done, Dave. Thank you, Mfumo. That was magical.